We're back.
Welcome to episode 237 of No Direction, the No Direction Network's Pathfinder News, Reviews, and Interviews podcast. I'm Ryan Costello.
And I'm Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Param.
Paizo is as known for its role-playing game Pathfinder, and of course its other role-playing games like Starfinder, as it is for the adventures it puts out. In fact, to some people, Pathfinder is the adventures, and specifically their Adventure Path line. We are over a year into Pathfinder 2nd Edition, but we are only 3 adventure paths into Pathfinder 2nd Edition. So some people might be looking at all of those epic stories from 1st edition that they never got a chance to play and are thinking, I want that, but maybe you're more of a fan of Pathfinder 2nd Edition and you don't want to go back to 1st edition. What do? To help us with the idea of converting adventures from other systems and past editions of Pathfinder into Pathfinder 2nd Edition, we have from Find the Path Ventures, Rick Sandidge. Hello, Rick.
Hello.
And also from Find the Path Ventures, Ross Scoggin. Hi, Ross.
Hello, hello.
How are you both doing tonight? One at a time. In alphabetical order.
Phenomenal.
Rick.
Okay. I'm doing great, actually.
Ross.
It's a beautiful day here in Texas.
Rather well myself. Thank you.
Excellent. I said you're both from Find the Path Ventures. Do you have official titles there? What is your role at Find the Path, Rick?
Well, I wanted to say president, but they vetoed it. So, no, we're all just equal partners in this mad venture that we put forth.
Okay, so then, because I think of you as Find the Path, but maybe it's just because you and I have had the most interactions. Like, did you found it?
I would say yes. Funny enough, it was a friend of mine that actually isn't involved with the podcasting side of this that started up a YouTube channel and just made some YouTube instructional videos and all the rest of that. And then when I roped the rest of my gaming group into running, I swooped in and said, "Hey, what do you guys feel about running this adventure path?" And they're like, "Wow, that's great." I'm like, "Great. What do you say about dragging it out over 5 years and also recording it, putting it out for everyone?" And then eventually everyone got on board. So, but yeah, I usually just define myself. I'm Rick Sandidge. I'm the host and game master for the Find the Path podcast's actual play of the Mummy's Mask and Tyrant's Grasp adventure paths.
And Ross, what's your role at Find the Path Ventures?
Largely gopher.
Yes.
So no, I'm mostly I've come a little late to the party, but I do things like currently I am the game master of our Tales from Dark Moon Vale series, if you've caught that. In addition, I am also a player on Tyrant's Grasp. As far as anything else goes, well, I just help out best I can.
Now, you say you're late to the party. Did you know Rick before Find the Path? Before Find the Path was a thing?
Absolutely. No, I played with Rick for a considerable amount of time, but just schedule conflicts and stuff. I couldn't join up initially. But
yeah, he wasn't available when we launched the Mummy's Mask actual play, and then when we said we're launching another one, there was some schedule conflicts at the very beginning. So for those of you who go to listen to our Tyrant's Grasp and are wondering where Ross is, he comes in around, I think it's episode 6. I wanted to say it was
end of episode 6. Yes.
Yeah. And then
I have one line.
Oh no, did you sit there muted for a 2-3-hour session?
No, I actually sit there for all the sessions. It's just most of the time
the magic of editing brought him in at the last second.
Yeah, exactly. So
So how has Find the Path been going? How are you happy with the way you've been interacting with the community, building Find the Path as a brand?
Absolutely. I mean, I hands down say this, and I know I'm on another podcasting network here, but I would say that we have the absolute best fans in existence, which I think there's a great deal of overlap with the people that watch your stream. So I imagine it's the exact same. But no, I mean, we have phenomenal fan base. Things have been going great. Our growth over the last year has been wonderful and beyond our initial expectations. So that's always something that we're happy to deliver on, and always trying to deliver more for the fans. So we're always kind of looking at ways to expand our reach.
I always get like a little bit excited when I see because I'm only able to follow you guys like sporadically. I can't follow all of the crazy podcasts, but you're definitely one of the networks I keep my my eye on. And so every time I saw you all make these cool big announcements, like we got partners, we're launching another show. I'm like, yes. This is like a really like I noticed that, like, there's a lot of shows launching, and then there's a lot of shows that are getting big money thrown at them, and like a lot of like celebrity casting and stuff like that. But I really was impressed with what I saw from you all when you all were getting started, and from our conversations at PaizoCon, and it was just like, I really like to see more ground level fans really getting the success that they deserve.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
We are very happy for all the success the world wants to throw at us.
Now, we are here to talk about converting adventures to Pathfinder 2nd Edition, but like Param said, you have been regularly making these big announcements, and you actually have an announcement that you are here to make tonight.
I do. I've teased this on all of our social media, so for all the people that have kind of hopped on to check this out. So we have been looking for ways to expand what we're offering to our audience for some time. And when we launched our Patreon, which was September of last year, it was immediately after Paizo had done the announcement, or actually released 2nd edition as well after the announcement for it. And of course, the most common question that we got at the time was, are you doing 2nd edition? Are you doing 2nd edition? And it's like, well, no, the game's been out in my hand for less than a month, and I really like to know a system before I dedicate a couple of years to actually playing this. So I suppose we're coming on here to announce that we put a little timer up on our website a couple of weeks back, and that is counting down to January the 6th, which will be a Wednesday, if my math is correct, which is going to be the launch of our new actual play podcast, which is going to be a 2nd edition podcast. And much as you'd stated towards the front, there are a number of adventure paths out for 2nd edition, I think 3. By that point, there might be 4 in the first book of a 4th one. And so instead, we had decided to convert. And since 1, no one else is doing it, and 2, it's a phenomenal adventure path, we have decided to convert Hell's Rebels from 1st edition to 2nd edition. So tackling that behemoth and delivering the results to all of our amazing path folk out there.
So 1, I do love a good countdown tease. Well done on that.
Thank you.
And is this launching to the public on your site, or is that going to be a Patreon exclusive?
It is going to be free and available to everyone. Unlike our current RSS feed show, it is bi-weekly, just because timing constraints make launching a second full weekly podcast somewhat difficult. But there will be 3 episodes available at launch for everyone to kind of get to know the characters and figure out whether or not they like what they're seeing. And then like all of our shows, we do 3 episodes of the actual play, and then a 4th episode after every 3. That's a kind of a catch up behind the scenes episode where we can read fan mail and give feedback and just talk about, like, what happened if you decided to attack the prince. Probably death. So get that behind the
death.
And from the standpoint of, I know both of you are game masters, it's always nice to get to explain the NPC backstories that they never got because they killed the person. So
that's why he had all those skins in his closet.
I never knew. I think that was a literal thing I said at one point during Carrying Crown.
Yeah, that is a Carrying Crown reference.
Oh, thank you.
I remember that. I remember that exact
that's
one.
Weird.
But yeah, the GM stopped the session to just be like, here's the backstory of each of the skins that is hanging in this guy's closet. I don't know how I'm supposed to get this out there other than just tell you, but it's amazing. And she just went on for a bit.
Journal. All villains have to be obsessive journalers.
Yes.
But what are they
yes.
writing their journal on?
I guess skinning techniques.
Oh, yes.
Has gone off the rails. So yeah.
All right. So then let's talk about Hell's Rebels. So what are you looking forward to about that adventure path?
Well, for those of you out there that are not as familiar with the Hell's Rebels adventure path, it is an adventure path set in the city of Cantargo, the Silver City. If you've read any of the 2nd edition stuff, you know that Cantargo is kind of in a better place. Hell's Rebels is to explain why Cantargo is in a better place. So it's a lot of people in Chiliax attempting to step up and rebel against the forces of Throne, who during that time have initiated a martial law in the city because of the glorious reclamation and all that stuff happening in main Chiliax. They're like, we might as well lock down our satellite cities as well. And it's the very short version of it is we went through Mummy's Mask because Mummy's Mask is kind of a classic fantasy adventure. It has an amazing setting as far as Osirian's concerned that is different, is very unique. And we went for Tyrant's Grasp because we wanted to do something grossly different from Mummy's Mask. And also, as the adventure path from first edition, we figured everyone was never going to play because it's the last one that came out, and everyone's going to finish up the 1E adventure paths and maybe jump into 2E.
Also, grossly is a great choice of words there. Just
grossly, yes.
Throwing that out there. It's like, ooh.
But in both of those cases, they're somewhat darker adventure paths. And as much as I love my grim dark fantasy, it's kind of nice to play something that's a little bit more uplifting. And a lot of that is what I've gotten from Hell's Rebels, that it is a very inspiring story. So that's part of the draw for us.
I'm glad you pointed out that it was the opposite of dark because it was uplifting, because I was like, that's not a light and fun story. Like,
no,
you are oppressed by a government that's literally run by demon puppeteers. Like, there's darkness to that adventure path too.
But I think it's the idea of being able to complete that arc where you start in darkness and you're going to get progressively better. And unfortunately, spoiler alert here, for anyone that's even looked at anything in second edition, Tyrant's Grasp probably does not conclude with stopping the Whispering Tyrant, as far as finding his phylactery and smashing it into pieces. And so having a story where your actions, you can see an appreciable change to your environment. And I feel like we're kind of in a time, not only as a country as far as the United States, but in the entirety of the rest of the world, where a more uplifting view of things are bad, but they can get better is probably a good message to carry forward right now.
And who will be GMing?
That would be me. Mostly because I find it very difficult to get out from behind the GM screen, in large part because people have bought me some amazing GM screens, and I desperately love them.
Is Dogmite?
I do have a Dogmite GM screen, and it is a beautiful work of art.
Yeah,
it is very pretty. I love it.
I am subscribed to their newsletter, and just every couple of days I get an update on how they've progressed the ability to paint those GM screens. And just, there was one with a beautiful yellow sky that I saw today. They're not a sponsor. I just admire them.
No, absolutely. No. If you can afford one, get one, because those things are just a wonderful addition. Even though I have not I have not been able to use mine yet because I received it during the quarantine. So I have not actually physically played with anyone in some time, but a man can dream.
Over here in my pile of my resin printer and pile of minis that I got right before all this broke out. I'm like, one day people will get to see them.
Start up another painting stream, Param. I'd really enjoy seeing that.
Yeah.
Ross, what role will you be playing in Hell's Rebels?
Well, I'll be playing for the first time a rogue. Actually, I will admit, despite the fact that I played Pathfinder since its inception, I actually played in the beta playtest.
Yeah.
I have never once actually played a rogue, so I'm looking forward to it. I know.
I think that's contractually required in the NDAs we gotta sign.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a reason, literally 9 out of 10 protagonists in the novels are rogues.
This is true.
Rogues
got a multi-class at least.
Yeah. No, but yes, I'm playing a. I don't want to give away too much, but I'm playing a tiefling rogue in this case. Which
nice.
Should be a lot of fun for Kintargo. So I look forward to bringing Nicolo to all of those out in listener land there.
So I have played in the first 3 books of Hell's Rebels, and this is not a spoiler to say, there's storytelling potential for a tiefling in Kintargo. That's just knowing what the setting is. You know that a tiefling will not be looked at in the same way as, most of the other ancestries that are walking around that city.
When I looked at the player's guide, I immediately just went, nope, yep, got to do it for Hell's Rebels.
And gets to show off that versatile heritage. So.
True.
So what was it about the rogue that attracted you to it?
I think a part of it was backstory. My character has a rather eclectic set of skills. Eclectic, not certain. It's eclectic. And I felt that represented the character well, but I also felt that I wanted to have. I like the idea of rogue heroes. I grew up a lot with tales of Robin Hood and stuff like that, and I felt like a character kind of in that vein would work really well in Hell's Rebels. So they're just like, yeah, no, let's do it.
Was that moment of lag on my end or on Ross's
Yeah,
end?
no.
I
we
think
all
that was
got
on
it.
Ross's end.
Oh,
That
yeah.
might have been on my end. I apologize. So I can go over that again real quick though.
Please.
Just the last sentence rather.
Yeah. So yeah, I grew up with a lot of stories of stuff like Robin Hood, and I just thought that a character in that vein would be a lot of fun to play in Hell's Rebels. So, yeah.
Well, the rogue is my favorite second edition class, and so there's a lot you can do with it. Just saying you're playing a rogue doesn't really give away much of your build.
True.
But it's exciting, and that's something I'm looking forward to seeing how it plays out. How on the podcast do you let people know about the mechanics of your builds?
Do you want to carry this, or I can?
Yeah, I can start with it. I know that. Well, first of all, we do actually publish our character sheets. They're usually found on our website. But so that way people can just see us from each level. Usually we don't update them necessarily at every level, but usually when there's
as often as we remember. Yes.
But and I mean, especially when there's like significant changes, like I imagine 5th level, for example, is going to be one of those when it's like, no, we definitely need to, since that's kind of one of the big ones, 5th, 10th, etc. And then I think from there too, we also usually in that after party show, the 4th episode that Rick was talking about, we try to go over just things that our character is trying to do, or it's like, hey, y'all leveled up last time, like what new feat did you get, what new skill training did you go for? So I know we'll definitely be keeping folks up to date through that as well.
Yeah, and while I did not ask the party to make a balanced party, in large part because I wanted to try out that idea with second edition, where it's like you don't need the 4 pillars of an adventuring party. I know as a group they tend to not like to repeat or make the you don't want 3 people showing up all playing half-orc barbarians, even though you could make 3 very different half-orc barbarians.
It's true.
But so amongst the party they all shared it, and then as the story kind of progresses, we don't really do a jump in and just say, I'm playing the, party human, choleric with listing off your ABCs. Just kind of organically work that back in.
I like to think that the background was party human. So I do want to talk about how you are converting it and just broadly and specifics about converting adventures. But before we do, you mentioned that no one is playing Hell's Rebels. Can you just let people know how you found out there were no actual plays of the Hell's Rebels adventure path?
Well, yeah, Jason with What Do You Do Pods has a comprehensive list. I tend to go on there every once in a while. I'd sneakily slide on there and go to his Twitter feed, and he usually has a link at the top that'll just take you to the PDF or the spreadsheet that he's made that lists everything. And when we looked at it, we of course had the whole idea of this is an uplifting story, but there was also the part of us that looked at this and said, no one is playing Hell's Rebels, and that's weird. And as much as we love having of course all the other podcasts out there, and we try to be as supportive of everyone else out there that is producing things, we also don't necessarily want to step on many toes or really put ourselves in that space where we're competing. So, obviously we're not going to try to go, toe to toe with Adventurous by doing more for the crown, especially when y'all have been doing such a phenomenal job with it already.
Oh, thank you.
It's compliment well deserved. I'm much better at giving them. So at the same time, we just kind of looked at it and went, well, this is a space no one's really explored. This is a story that we felt needed to be told. And so fortunately we were able to just go on there and I didn't have to dig myself because Jason does all this phenomenal work. So I was just able to click on a couple things and just go,
Yeah, so if you are not following What Do You Do Pods on Twitter, Jason just makes it his life mission. He has a hobby unto itself of listening to actual plays, keeping people posted on what podcasts are doing what adventure paths. It's an amazing resource, and I'm fascinated that it's something he does for fun.
Yeah, and the scroll that he does on there, like not just like I think I saw it today on Twitter that he has a new like scrolling thing that he pops up that's kind of like a GIF, but it goes through like all the new releases and everything. I don't know how much time that took him, but that is some serious dedication. And also he hangs out on our Discord some. So, hey, Jason. Thank you for everything that you do. You're a phenomenal human being. I assume human.
He's a party human.
Half-orc barbarian.
All right, I went to try and see what this the scrolling thing you're mentioning is. I don't see it, so I'm gonna have to go back later. Oh, Param, did you find it?
No, I didn't find it. I just pulled up the Twitter feed.
Okay.
Oh, people in chat are asking for a link. So while I share that, Param, can you remind people how they can participate in our shows live?
Why, yes, every episode of No Direction is filmed live in front of a Twitch audience. And if you want to participate, all you have to do is join us on Wednesdays at 9 p.m. Eastern Time and join the Twitch chat. We'll be taking questions from the chat throughout the show and forwarding them on to our guests. Speaking of which, we have a question from No Direction's own Luis Loza, the Nauto
Hey,
Classic.
Luis.
Also
Luis is a
Paizo.
gentleman and a scholar. I'm always happy
He
to hear from
is.
Luis.
He is brilliant and charismatic.
Just that
Also,
hair.
and also curious because he wants to know: are you planning to port over the Rebellion rules?
We are. I'm actually
Ooh.
planning on doing, and this is something else I was wanting to bring up at some point. But not only are we going through on making all of these conversions, I've spoken with Paizo and gotten permission from the fine folks over there at Paizo to make our conversion notes available.
Wow!
And we will be putting these out. These will be on our Patreon, but they will be at our $5 tier. So if you're already on there and you're wanting some Tyrant's Grasp, and in the meantime you're wanting a new adventure path to jump into, we're putting all of that out. So I'm converting over the Rebellion mechanics, which are a lot easier now that I have, once the game mastery guide came out and I was able to look at the mechanic systems in there, I went, oh, okay, now this is going to be a little bit easier. But yeah, we're going to be trying to convert everything over completely so that as we're playing it and releasing it, anyone can then jump in on our Patreon, download all of my conversion notes, and then have the exact same adventure yourself. Well, I mean, different adventure because different people, but
we didn't really talk about this, but you said you're converting it. Do you have a game design background?
Personally, no. I just love numbers. I love numbers. I love the way math works. It's funny is Param has over time. I've been a fan of No Direction for some time, and for the longest time I was in the Rhine camp of I liked the game mechanics almost being like the physics of the universe and everything built off of that. And second edition has kind of won me over to the Param camp of the, I think you refer to as top-down mechanics for like monster building, where it's just like, I need it to do this thing. I don't need to know how many ranks of swim it has. And
until it gets kicked into a pool.
Until it gets kicked into a pool. Then I have to hand wave it, apparently. I don't know.
Second edition has a chart for you for that.
It's true. They have a chart for pretty much everything.
Yeah. The giant book of charts.
But no, I don't have any background in game design, but I was one of those kids that I was the teenager that got the DMG when it came out for 3.0, and the moment I was reading through there and the math clicked for me for the encounter and experience differential for the in 3.5, 3.0, 3.5. After that, I just fell in love with the mechanics, and I've always just like loved watching how the mechanics interact. And the math in second edition is so tight that it's almost easier to convert things there because it doesn't take you 3 hours to build a monster from the ground up. So it makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah.
So are you finding yourself doing that, building monsters from the ground up? Because I imagine as a GM, that's going to be one of the most frequent things you're going to need to do when doing conversions.
I've had to do it for a couple. I won't go into that because I know some of my players may actually be out there in the stream. Hi, if you are. And also one of them's right over here, or wherever he is in relation to me right now.
Yeah. and her human.
It's true, and her human.
Yeah, I'm sorry. She broke down the door. So
half cat barbarian.
Yeah, she's apparently fine. But she tends to be a little hanger on for most of the recordings anyway. She's fortunately very quiet, unlike some other cats.
Or dogs.
or dogs, or what have you. And yeah, so as far as the conversions are, a lot of times I'm able to take creatures that currently exist and tweak them a little bit if I need something that's just kind of adjacent to it. I've only really had to do kind of a ground up build for I think 2 or 3 things for the first book. So most of it's just easy translations. Unfortunately, Hell's Rebels is a little bit of an older adventure path. It was 2015, and so it wasn't pulling. I can only imagine how difficult it'd be to convert Tyrant's Grasp, where it was pulling from 6 different bestiaries.
Yeah.
Whereas
Instead
Hell's
of
Rebels
just
only
4?
pulling from like, I think 3 or 4. Yeah.
Mhm.
So it makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah.
I mean, we got this. Paizo eventually had to put a rule into effect near the end of first edition's lifespan when you were writing adventures, especially for. They've talked about this on the show, especially when you were writing for society. Yeah, it's like you can only get 3 books. You can only make the GM lug so much to the convention center.
Exactly.
Jeez.
I need you to bring all 6 of your books and core rule. And why don't you bring the pawn sets while you're at it?
Yeah.
Oh.
So a little tangent for the Pathfinder Society adventure I wrote. In the list of resources, I listed the advanced player's guide, just assuming I had taken something from it, but I hadn't. So I was forcing GMs to take a book they didn't even need to. And there was already 5 or 6 other books that they needed.
I'm surprised that it's possible to have anything in Pathfinder First Edition after the APG existed that doesn't use the APG.
That's why I put it in there.
Yeah.
All right, so Rick, you're sitting down with the task of converting Hell's Rebels or any adventure path. What's the first thing you do?
I personally, I like to kind of get the hardest thing out of the way first, which in my experience, just because of how much the economy has changed, was actually treasure. Now, fortunately, there's the easy, knock a 0 off the end of it or add a 0 to the end of it or whatever, change the decimal for gold to silver, or just change it from, okay, it's 100 gold pieces. Well, you're not going to give 100 gold pieces in second edition.
No.
Or I think there's one of them that I saw that's like, the party gets through their first encounter and gets like a +1 weapon. I'm like, do they? So treasure conversion is probably, I find, the hardest thing in second edition, just because there's not really a 1-to-1 basis for it. And a lot of that, I more looked at the individual encounters and what level the party was supposed to be, and then just found a treasure value progression that kept them to the gear level that they should have, which Paizo adventure paths are somewhat notorious for putting people behind on treasure progression, unless you're literally keeping everything and not selling off anything, at which point you've got a random assortment of magic items, but they're not necessarily keeping up with the big 6 magic items that you need. But fortunately, removing the big 6 in second edition allows us to open up the door to a lot more kind of fun and interesting, unique things.
Absolutely.
So I would say that treasure would be the first thing that you step into. The second thing, for a much easier step, is to just find the monsters and convert the ones that, it's like, okay, there's a guard dog here. Well, there's a guard dog in second edition. It's, equivalent, and usually the challenge rating hasn't changed much. I actually can't think of anything off the top of my head in the bestiary that the challenge rating really changed on.
I was looking through when I wrote a small thing on it, and there's a couple, but they're usually fairly obscure. So for example, a cat Sith is challenge rating 2, where it became a creature level 6 in 2e. But it's very rare for that to happen. Usually they're, if not the same, very close.
So be sure to pay attention for that.
I'm kind of surprised by that, because I thought one of the intentions when they were tackling the bestiary is to make these conversions as easy as possible. If you in Pathfinder 2, if you accidentally throw a 6th level cat Sith at a second level party, that's the end of that party.
Yeah, that's it.
especially with, again, how tight the math is in second edition. In first edition you might stand a chance, in second edition,
no.
Do you? And then after that, usually the easier steps are, I find, converting NPCs a little bit easier to do, especially now that we have the game mastery guide out, and cross my fingers for that inevitable NPC codex 2.0, which is going to be great, especially again for anyone who plays Society, because that was a godsend to all the Society game masters not having to lug around extra books all the time. Saving page space. Yeah, I mean, those are usually where there's one thing that I found it's kind of a curious, and I don't have enough experience with the system yet, so I'm waiting to figure it out. I feel like the second edition maps are larger. And so as I'm looking at first edition maps, because again, you didn't have the 3-action economy in first edition, I'm wondering, not using Hell's Rebels for an example, but using Rise of the Rune Lords, Thistletop. Thistletop was actually a very small dungeon. It's very compact. And so the idea of just going, okay, we've given you all this mobility in second edition, and now we're going to put you in a 9-square room. Fight these goblins.
No, you're absolutely correct. It got to the point to where, especially in like Rise of the Rune Lords, and then even Wrath of the Righteous was bad for this, where 5-foot hallways everywhere, 5-foot hallways. Rain and Winter did this too. As a GM, I just started multiplying all squares into 4 squares. Like 5 feet equals 10 feet on this map now, and that
finally I can play my Mammoth Rider.
Yes, Cavaliers everywhere.
Now we know how the dragon got in this room.
Yeah.
It wasn't teleportation or turning into a cat or whatever the other excuse was.
Yeah.
So yeah, the map conversion is the thing I'm the most interested in, on whether or not I'm going to need to expand the size of some maps to allow for the mobility that second edition gives to players.
So that's not just converting some words and numbers, that's converting art. What is the plan if you do have to convert things?
So my lazy option is just zooming it up to double the size in Roll20 and just going, you know what, everything's 10 feet. Assuming that that's not going to be the case, again, I want to try to make the conversion as close to the original subject matter as possible. And so I'm going to try to avoid that as much as possible, unless it's for things that they don't provide me maps. So if it's, hey, the party gets into a fight in the streets of Kintargo somewhere,
those streets are as big as you want them to be.
Yeah, they're just as big as you want them to be. So if you want them to be 30 feet across or whatever, you can have just their alleyways 30 feet across. Our fans are probably aware that we are very big cat people.
Yeah.
You
must love the APG then.
Yeah, true.
Yes.
I think Jordan was especially happy, but yes.
Being that he does play Catfolk Monk for our Mummy's Mask Adventure Path, but
yes. Yeah. Sorry, the context is important.
Will we see any Catfolk players in the Hell's Rebels team?
We will not, although I will say that the Ross has already mentioned that there's going to be some potential advanced player's guide races as far as that is concerned, with using the versatile heritage for the human. So still technically a human, I believe. I don't think, because the versatile heritage can be applied to anything now. Which is something I absolutely love. But I think everyone can be assured that you're going to see some stuff that is not from the core rulebook. Yes. Because the moment my players got their hands on the advanced player's guide, every one of them devoured it. So it is definitely a welcome addition to the game.
Dungeon Novice has a question about maps. Saying, trying to avoid spoilers, of course. There's a coffee shop in that adventure. What are those cubbies in it, particularly in your game? Oh, okay. This is not a conversion question. It's specifically about the map in Hell's Rebels. Do you know anything about the cubbies in the coffee shop?
Do you, Rick?
Specifically, no. Although, to be perfectly honest, the idea of coffee shop cubbies sounds pretty phenomenal. It's like a place you can go, like a nice plush chair and like a little cubby, maybe with a reading light, and then you just have a little curtain to separate you off, kind of like a little lounge there. Yeah. I wouldn't mind that.
This is like the cozy version of the COVID bubbles they're putting in restaurants right now.
Absolutely. Cozy would be nice change, though.
So another question that comes from chat, it's also from Luis Loza, Donato Classic, says, what are you doing to convert the campaign traits?
So the campaign traits, I went through and completely converted them and adjusted them to become backgrounds of their own. And so those, I follow the standard background progression. Here's 2 ability score boosts. One of them has to be from one of these 2. The other one is a free boost of your choice. And then I just chose things like trying to think immediately. I think there's like the Child of Cantargo, where you're part of one of the noble families of the city, and took that to give you for lore for Chelish nobility, which if you've looked through Hell's Rebels, Chelish nobility kind of comes up a lot if you want to know anything about the thrones. And so it's the same thing where it's you know, a lot of the it's interesting because a lot of the background traits, campaign traits, when you're translating the background, they almost flow themselves, that you look at and go immediately, okay, well, this makes perfect sense for this to give you legal lore. Or for instance, I believe the Natural Born Leader talks about how you've always been in charge of organizations, and you know, you're kind of the person that they're put on a team and then everyone defaults to, and that kind of immediately falls into the idea of like guild lore. So the lores just kind of immediately fall in on their own, and I felt as backgrounds they made a lot of sense. So
and one of the differences that traits, you would get one campaign trait and then one other trait, whereas you only get one background. Are you compensating for that at all, or are you just hoping they'll take the campaign backgrounds and they'll shut up about it?
Interestingly enough, I only had one player. I won't name which one.
It was Ross, wasn't it?
Okay, I feel personally attacked right now.
That decided to, because I took the exact same tack that they take in the player's guide for second edition for things like Age of Ashes, where they provide backgrounds that they suggest for the adventure path that will tie you directly to some of the events going on in the adventure path. And then they make suggestions for these are other background traits or backgrounds that would make sense. And so I only had one player that just said, you know what, I don't feel like the character concept that I have fits in any of these backgrounds, which is something I understand that you could probably be fairly sympathetic towards, right?
Oh, yes. I am so glad they included the, or don't take any of these backgrounds.
Or don't. Option. Yeah. And so, well, they found another one that worked well for them, that worked for the type of character that they were wanting to make. It won't necessarily, I did kind of warn them that depending on what they choose, I specifically chose certain lores for the campaign backgrounds that tie directly into what I know as the game master will become pertinent as you continue to play the story. Whereas I just kind of told, it's like, if you take something that's, you know, desert lore background, because, you know, I came from a desert before I moved here, it's like, that's going to be great, but I expect to never use that lore skill.
You say that, but every now and then Adventure Paths throw you a weird curveball, and really rewards the players that were like, I'm not making a character to theme.
Yeah. A really
sometimes
bad
it's like, well, you made it to not the theme and you're still not helpful right now.
Yeah. We teleported to Catapesh, guys. All right.
Yeah, I find myself fortunate to have a gaming group that is very good about accepting when they are not in the spotlight. And so if it's, as long as it works for their character and their character is still getting their time to shine as far as role playing is concerned or anything else, having a lore skill that won't necessarily help them much, I think that they can kind of shrug that off.
I mean, I can't speak for all of them, but I agree.
Well, you're the only one here, Ross, so you in fact can speak for all of them.
I mean, I can, but I don't think they'd like it if I did.
Ross, on behalf of all the questions, screwed up my joke. Never mind. Just going in my corner. Param, you take over the episode.
Alrighty. So, do you have, from the player standing point of view, what considerations have you had to make on the conversions about what the player characters might now be bringing or not bringing to the table that you could have expected a first edition character to have?
I think we could probably make that a two-parter, because I could answer this from the player's point of view, since Ross ran through the Tales from Darkmoon Vale. But from the game master point of view for Hell's Rebels, again, I find myself fortunately in a position where there's a certain limitation to second edition because there's not as much out right now. And so, as everyone is probably aware with first edition, you eventually reach a point where if you have a wizard in the party and that wizard has access to a magic shop where they can buy scrolls, they can solve pretty much any problem in existence. Give them time. And in second edition, there aren't just that sheer volume of very specific spells, like here's a spell that you can cast on an item and then you can recall that item to your hand anytime from anywhere as a permanent spell. I think that's like a third or fourth level spell. I'm not entirely positive. Ask Jessica, she knows.
Yeah.
But so I kind of knew going in that there are only these, what, I think there's 16 classes now that I have to worry about
16
instead of
sounds right.
I believe so.
Mhm.
Instead of the 30, I can't remember how many first edition ended up with.
There
I
were
think it was
more
like
than 30.
39.
Mhm.
Everyone forgets the shifter,
Yeah.
but sad shifter.
Oh.
So from a GM standpoint, I feel like it does allow for, you to know what the players are going to be capable of doing, because there's just fewer resources for them to pull from. So I don't have to worry about all these books out here. From a player standpoint, I'm one of those people that sometimes finds myself crippled by the paradox of choice, where there's so many options, and I just go, especially because as a generally speaking forever GM, I don't get to play that often. And so when I do get to play, I'm just like, what am I going to play? And then I always default back to Inquisitor or Ranger because they're my favorites.
Yeah.
Although a champion is actually what I'm playing in Tales from Dark Moon Bell, because
Ooh.
I loved the champion and I love the Pantheon rules. And so the moment I love dwarves. So I tend to be in the minority there for a lot of people, but just an opportunity to play dwarves. So
So kudos for picking Dark Moon Veil. I mean, a lot of Pathfinder fans kind of slip on that because most of that came out before most of this part that made that region so interesting came out before Pathfinder was even its own game.
Yeah.
And it's got some amazing details and stories that I
yeah.
just don't think people appreciate as much as they should.
Oh, yeah. I mean, reading through a lot of the adventures, I played through the first one way back when, but then I started catching up on it, and I never got a chance to run any of them. But like looking through, it was like, no, there's some really cool stuff in here. So I'm very glad to finally have a chance to, bring that to a wider audience. Um, One thing I find interesting, and I think this is a bit more crunchy, I guess from a numbers perspective, but looking into some of the assumptions from Pathfinder 1e versus Pathfinder 2e, I think that one of the interesting things is how the math can make, like, perhaps the best example I've got is that a group of ghouls, is like, say 7 ghouls is like, could be a challenge rating 7 encounter in Pathfinder 1e, technically. In Pathfinder 2e, they do not give you any experience. Uh, at least like as written in the book, like they're considered insignificant enough to not warrant any experience whatsoever. And I was really like, but like that's 7 ghouls. Like why? And then when I was looking at it, I was like, oh, by the math, like there are some player builds that a ghoul literally can't hit without a natural 20. um and so as I was going through, it was like, oh no, that actually makes a lot of sense, because even like, even like the wizard just standing in the back is going to have an armored class that the ghouls might only hit on like a 16 plus. So yeah, of course it's insignificant. So there are certain encounters that will have to be retooled when you go from first edition to second edition, simply because the assumptions of the system are so different.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, even with some builds that punish people for failing attacks, the ghouls would literally just kill themselves.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's true. They just run at me and follow my sword.
Yeah, it's like, oh wow, not what I would have done, but you do you,
my
ghoul.
sword 10 times.
I like in chat, Mirrorwolf9
Got it
saying,
coming.
look, ghouls are no joke. And then Firelark says, 2e ghouls are a joke.
Comparatively, yes.
Yes. And as far as going through Dark Moon Veil and everything else is concerned, it's just a setting that is so fun and interesting. The entirety of the Dark Moon Veil setting was so great, and so getting to make characters that are from this I'm going to just say horrible town.
Yeah.
As far as Falcon Hollow is concerned, is a lot of fun, and it made for some really interesting role playing opportunities where it's just like, oh well, there's always that question of like, why are we having to handle this? Why don't we go to the guard? And it's like, oh well, the guard are too busy shaking down passerbys for whatever treasure they can find, and actually bother taking the time to find a cure for a plague.
Yeah.
They're just like, well, we don't really care. It's not affecting the rich people.
Yeah, we're fine.
Thanks.
I love when my players are like, we don't want to do adventures in Andoran. It's all the goody two-shoes land. What's wrong there? Well, we introduced you to this region.
Yeah. Is a town without an alignment of neutral evil or something. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know Ross also approached that because that was the first 1E module, wasn't it? Hollow Slice Hope?
It was the first Pathfinder module.
Yes.
And it wasn't even in 1E. It was actually 3.5.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was Game Mastery, wasn't it?
Yeah, Game Mastery, yes.
It is considered one of the rarest items because it took me years to track down a physical copy of it because it was released as a free RPG Day promotion for the Game Mastery line. And before anybody knew what a Galarian was or why anybody would care to keep it, it just ended up in a lot of the trash bins at comic book stores of discarded third-party adventures nobody picked up.
Fun, very short story. I was dating someone that was working at a comic book shop at the time. I believe it's the comic book shop that Ross was actually working at.
Yes.
And they called me up and asked me if I'd go up there and run things for free RPG Day because they're like, you played D&D, and I'm like, yeah, sure. So I went up there and did that, and so I've got a copy of Hollow's Last Hope up on my bookshelf back there somewhere because I think I had 3 for a little while because they're like, well, no one else showed up, so they left all those to me and a whole bunch of dice and some pencils.
Yeah.
And I think I ended up giving away 2 of them, and I've still got 1. I wish I'd kept more because I think there's like another 2 or 3 copies that they're like, you can take as many as you want. I was like, I don't want to be greedy.
You are breaking parents' heart.
I'm sorry, Pear. If I had
Donato Classic in chat, Luis was saying that it was also a pain for him to get a hold of, and I know that him and me have often commiserated on keeping a complete collection and how hard it is.
There's one book that I'm actually missing from my my collection of the campaign setting books, and that is the guide to Magnamar, and it's surprisingly difficult to find. So I'll just have to shell out for it at some point.
Surprised at some of the ones that from that line that were, it almost seems like at random.
Yeah. Everyone wanted to play Shattered Star, I guess.
I think I might have the guide to Magnamar. And I do not have
hold on to it. It's treasure.
I've never even tried. Yeah, good to know. So we have some specific adventure paths some of our patrons wanted to get your thoughts on converting.
Absolutely.
Aaron Scholl wants to know how you would convert Skull and Shackles, especially ship-to-ship combat.
Ooh.
So I think I got teased by some people in our community because at PaizoCon before the Gen Con where 2nd edition came out, I was up at the PaizoCon. I believe that was one of the ones that I met Paramat. And I remember being in one of the panels and asking about vehicular combat rules in the core rulebook. And everyone's like, why do you want to bring the vehicular combat? It's like, I just want to see them fix the ship-to-ship combat. Because I ran through Skull and Shackles in 1st edition. I loved the story. But eventually I just went, you know what? You chase each other for a little while, and then you shoot at each other, make a couple random dice rolls. All right, now you're swinging across, and let's get to the fighting again. Because the ship-to-ship combat was very cumbersome. And I very much like the change to the vehicle rules that they put out for 2nd edition. I thought that they were a gross improvement. I haven't gotten to play with them yet, so I don't know if they're still a little cumbersome. But I feel like it's one of the adventure paths that you can convert a little bit easier. In large part because if I recall from running it, and I've run it to completion, you fight a lot of bipedal people. It's a lot of like other pirates and sometimes a ghoul, or just going back to ghouls or Lacedon or what have you.
Yeah.
And so I feel like it's a lot of more bipedal. What about you, Ross?
Skull and Shackles.
I don't know Skull and Shackles
one.
Yeah.
I would actually, I do agree that the new vehicle rules are much better, but I'm so traumatized from any vehicle rules that I don't want to do it. And also, I had a very, very, very big want for ship vehicle combat. I wanted them to just make the Starfinder boats and like just make them boats, and that would be great. But But
I haven't
how I
actually
would. Oh, sorry.
I apologize. I was just going to say I haven't gotten to play with the new Starfinder ship-to-ship combat rules, so I don't know if those are a little bit better than the first edition ones. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Nice.
Just yes.
they are.
The math actually functions.
Hey.
I love
Ross,
Starfinder.
sorry,
I
you
have to
sounded
say
like
it.
you've been trying to say something for a bit.
Huh? Oh no, I was just agreeing.
Okay.
Yeah, no, Starfinder ship combat is super cool. I like it.
Mhm. So, what I was saying is I would use the complex challenge rules again with 2 different victory point tracks that the players got to choose what they were going for. The morale points and the hull points. Are you going to sink it or are you going to take it over?
I feel like that is a slimmed down, very streamlined way to do that.
Yeah.
You should put that up on your Patreon with the rest of your what is it? No Pathfinder
PF point
K-
or
KD.
PF2 point
PF2
KD.
point KD. There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I got distracted from another project, so I haven't given that the attention it deserves. But yes, PF2 point KD.
Aram's just giving away content.
I mean, that's kind of
That
my
has always
life.
been our thing.
Yeah.
Like, my character sheets, all my spell cards, this weird NPC database.
Oh, I'm positive I can say this. I'm sure that both Rachel and Jessica would want me to thank you for your spell cards, of which see prolific use at our tables. So,
And I thank you for the character sheet. I'm loving the second edition one.
Oh, I'm glad.
Yeah.
I was surprised how many people use it.
Yeah, I think it's great.
It's very clean. It's just
Yeah.
slimmed down. You know, it's
been
got everything that
people
you need.
translated it into 3 languages now. And I was like,
Really?
yeah, I get contacted every so often. I would like to do this with them. I'm like, sure, whatever. Have fun. Is it Portuguese now? Awesome.
Woo!
There you go.
All right, some other adventures that our patrons would like to know about. Zathos of Vericius has actually asked about Keep on the Borderlands and Temple of Elemental Evil. So some classic Dungeons and Dragons adventure paths instead of Pathfinder. And what additional challenges do you see coming from converting those?
Correct me if I'm wrong. Keep on the Borderlands. That was oh wait, no, I'm thinking, was that the one with the spaceship? God, it's been so long.
No, that's Expedition to the Barrier Keeps.
Thank you. Okay,
Yeah.
no,
Peaks,
so
not
completely
keeps.
that. Barrier Peaks, yes.
Yeah, that's the Giant trilogy. Keep the Borderlands.
Oh,
the Giant
yeah.
trilogy. And it was
Okay.
like one of the ones that was included with one of the early basic.
Kind of the
boxes.
Against the Giant series, yeah. I mean, I feel like the Giants would be something relatively easy to do, and I think that the Giants have gotten a decent amount of love already as far as the bestiaries are concerned. So I don't figure that would be that too difficult. And to be perfectly honest, kind of the beauty if you're already looking at doing a conversion, even if you're not looking at converting from 1E to 2E, if the story's good and you like the maps and all the rest of that, then it's almost no different taking something from 5E and bringing it over, or taking something from AD&D and bringing it over if you want some classic. I remember as a very young child playing the Temple of Elemental Evil. I don't remember living long.
Yeah.
Did you touch the thing?
I'm sure it probably happened, but that was a blur of I remember playing in that, and I remember playing very briefly in a Tomb of Horrors game. I didn't crawl through a mouth into a black pit or anything, as far as horrible choices to make there. That again, I think that's kind of the beauty with doing a translation into 2E, is that it's pretty straightforward, and as long as you're keeping the flavor of what you're looking at as monsters in the case, or giants in the case of Keep on the Borderlands, then I think it'd work pretty well.
And I mean, I find the DMG monster creation rules to also be very straightforward to use. It really makes some very well thought out monsters that work very well within the math of the system.
Mm-hmm.
I found something from my own experience in converting from first edition to 2E, and also that will definitely apply to a lot of 3.5 and earlier, is that a lot of adventures sometimes forget that the expected encounters per day that a party can handle is around 4.5. And like you'll end up in places where like there's no place to rest. Obviously, we're in an extra dimensional dungeon that spawns zombies forever, and they want us to get through 18 encounters.
Oh no.
They didn't, I'm finding that PF2, you don't need as rest as often. Like at the back half of that, you're hurting and you can feel it, but like you can, my players on their own choice are usually going through like 5, 6, 7, 8 encounters before they even think about resting.
Yeah. One of the things that I'm very fortunate because I have a phenomenal gaming group. I really do. And not just because one of them sitting here, that I'm very fortunate because, and people brought this up a number of times, they don't really back away from a challenge. They'll flee if they are the first ones to just say, if we feel outnumbered, we're not going to stand here and duke it out and die because our pride requires it. We will run away. But most of the time, they'll go in, and if there is a map, they will not stop until that map is cleared. If it makes logical sense that it's like, if we rest, this person will get away, or they'll reinforce their position, or they'll be ready for us, or they'll attack us in our sleep. All of which I've done in the past.
It's true. It's so true.
So it's something I'm looking forward, because I've heard that similar thing that in second edition people don't tend to stop, just because you actually have the powers, like the ability to keep going, and with the way that the medicine skill works, you're able to patch yourself back up easier than in first edition. And I think Ross could probably expand on this a little bit, but in when we were doing our playthrough of the Hollow's Last Hope, we got to the dwarven temple that was abandoned. We just kind of showed up, and we were freshly rested when we showed up at the door, and I think that was probably 7, 8 rooms, 9, multiple encounters.
Yeah, there were at least 7 encounters, I believe, in the upper floor. And then of course the small spoiler, but major encounter downstairs.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't think you rested once.
I
in
don't
all of
believe we
that.
rested once. I think we just powered through the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And towards the end, it's exactly what you said. Like, I felt like I'm spent.
Yeah.
But even playing a champion, it's not, oh, well, I've used my once per day smite or something like that. It's like, okay, I'm out of hero points because I needed it for a save back there. So I better do something heroic before I fall on the ground. And I think some people ended up on the ground a couple of times, but
It's true.
The second edition allows for a lot more opportunities to just kind of get back up and keep going, and doesn't require as many consumable resources. And so it makes longer dungeons much more viable.
Lava Being in chat is asking, did earlier systems stress a party's ability to rest while inside dangerous environments? Absolutely. First edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, like that's an entire sub pact of the rule systems and equipment chapter is like, and like spells like Portable Hole, that's why it exists.
Yeah.
That's why there's so many spells like Portable Hole too. Like
Yeah.
there's 5 for just having a campsite somewhere.
Yeah. There's a hut, there's a mansion, you name
rope
it.
Trick, is that the one where you climb up the rope and
trick's great. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Love that rope trick.
Rope trick's so good.
Yeah.
Mirror Wolf has a question. They are converting Age of Worms, and they want to know about how you are handling experience and leveling.
Well, we have 2 different philosophies, so I suppose I'll start insofar as that I decided when I was doing Darkmoon Vale to go through the experience system as written in the core rulebook. I wanted to see how that math worked out. I think in general, I adjusted a few encounters up a little bit because the scenario as written, it assumes players get to second level by the end of it. With just the encounters that were in there, I wasn't able to actually get players up to second level with just the baseline experience, so I actually had to add in a couple of things or just improve like a little monsters here and there. But it wasn't so outside the realm of possibility that it just was a little hard to make the math work. So I would say that one of the things that you could do to save yourself some trouble is decide your experience track early on. And if you start finding that your encounters are getting out toward a certain one, like the fast experience track is now 800 experience, the medium one is, the default one is 1,000, then 1,200 for the slow one, if I recall correctly. But yeah, just kind of like see how your encounters map out to where it approximates to, and then just go with that track. That would be my advice.
Excellent. As most people probably, anyone that's listened to our Mummy's Mash show knows, I'm a huge fan of the fast experience track. In large part because I find most adventure paths are full of what I usually call just extraneous encounters, where this is an encounter that is literally only here to get you experience. And if I feel an encounter is boring or breaks up the pacing, I drop it. Just because I feel like the story is more important than necessarily adding an encounter. Fortunately, as the adventure paths have progressed, they become fewer and fewer of these, just like, this is just an encounter here to give you more experience. For Hell's Rebels, I kind of looked at it for a little bit, and I did some of the math for the experience, and there's a lot of like quest completion experience that's included in Hell's Rebels. And I decided for the first time for that, I'm going to go with the milestone. Just go with, you reach a certain point, and then for the story, it just makes sense for you to be a higher level now. Usually after big accomplishments. And some of that is a conceit to the fact that it's being recorded. Because since we're being recorded, it kind of builds up to, you want to fall into certain, for lack of a better term, narrative tropes or cinematic tropes, where it's okay, now it's the party has reached the end of this thing, and so the audience wants to see an appreciable difference, where it's okay, I can tell that after they beat Zong Thor the Barbarian, then suddenly they're more powerful and capable of pressing on. Yes, spoilers. Zong Thor and those Thrune barbarians, you got to watch out for them.
Let's see here. Let me write this down. Zong Thor.
Okay, that's 3 Z's.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Through
and yeah, and so but if you're just running it with the experience system, every once in a while in Mummy's Mask, I would reach a point where the party goes, we're like 500 XP away from a level up, and it'd be great if we like leveled up before we went into this next dungeon where we're going to be preparing new spells, because we know we're going to be going through this whole dungeon. But instead it's okay, we leveled up when we tripped over a step on our way up to the temple doors and got the experience from that. It's a specifically designed trap with a loose stair.
Most cunning trap.
I always encourage people to take a look at the fast experience track, because it kind of gets you to the narrative a little faster. And again, I don't know if this is an experience that y'all have had, Param or Ryan, that sometimes there's just encounters in there that you feel like this is kind of a speed bump.
I have that. And also when you were mentioning boring encounters, when I was running Rise of the Rune Lords, we were in book 3, we did a random encounter, and it was like, more stone giants? No. And I had just gotten the bestiary.
I was about to say the same thing.
Yeah. So I had just gotten the bestiary 3. I whipped it open. I was like, no, there was a cool monster I saw. Okay, this entire session is dedicated to this one monster. It has nothing to do with any Rune Lords rising or whatever, but we're not fighting more stone giants.
It's like I counted it. There are 11 encounters in that adventure path where it's literally some combination of stone giant, the same stone giant stat block, and the same dire bear stat block.
I was going to say, sometimes they have a bear.
There's too many of those encounters.
Jordan isn't here. Jordan being one of my other players, who was also the game master for when we went through Serpent Skull. And but he could probably regale you with how we all threatened him with violence if we had to fight another patrol of 6 serpent folk for no reason, just 6 serpent folk. And there was no variation. It was just there's another 6 serpent folk. And after the 5th time, we had basically the same encounter. 4 of those times on an almost identical map. We went, no, we're done. We just ended up just using chain lightning over and over again until we could leave.
Has no one noticed all these patrols have gone missing? Stop sending out more patrols of 6 serpent folk. Send 12.
You think they'd vary it up. Yeah, you think they'd send 2 at once, but no. Apparently they just took the standard, adventure mentality. It's like, oh, we'll just send 6 more. Okay, if that last patrol did, that last patrol did. Okay.
They'll load themselves out eventually.
Yeah, I think at
10 to 14 patrols will make them a little tougher.
Yeah, I think one time they locked a door. And we had to get through a door to get to them first.
Hey.
There was no escape.
So going back to Zathos of Veristia's list, he asked about 8 different adventures. We're not going to go through all of them, but there's a couple of them that I want to call out, and the first of them is Second Darkness. So this is an early adventure path. It's under the 3.5 rules, but it's also one of the first adventure paths that had a twist that alienated a lot of players. Like, it's not an adventure path with a lot of fans because of that twist. So when you are converting an adventure path, you have the benefit of hindsight. How do you apply that to make sure the adventure paths land better and that you benefit from the experience of the people that came before you?
So, interestingly enough, I think we can, both Ross and I can talk directly to this because I ran through the entirety of Second Darkness. And Ross played through the entirety of Second Darkness. And there was a twist in there that did. My suggestion, and I know this is a controversial view amongst some game masters, is be as honest with your players as possible about what they're getting into. And so with that one, I told them, it's like, it starts out in this pirate city, and the player's guide kind of implies that it's a big thing with this pirate city. This pirate city makes up maybe 1/4, if you're lucky, of the entirety of this adventure path, and then it's gone. So like to do elfy things and figure out things that make you excited about elfies things. So it's a good opportunity to look at the player's guides and decide how much do you want to just tell your players, because some players will metagame, sometimes to their own detriment. You know, we've run into a few problems where if you're going into something and you know this is going to be an undead heavy adventure path, notoriously, and very minor spoiler here for Tyrant's Grasp, it kind of establishes in the player's guide, the first book doesn't even take place in Galarian. It takes place on another plane, full of psychopomps. And so if you build a character that goes, I'm going into Tyrant's Grasp, I want to be great against undead, you're not going to find any when there's a lot of psychopomps around taking care of that issue.
Yeah.
So it gives you a great opportunity to just be straightforward with people. Now, if they're talking a little bit more about sometimes the problematic things that came from, Second Darkness and some of its, let's just say, certain coded things that were kind of incorporated in, I think it's a great opportunity to change anything that even some of the writers have said in hindsight that they wish they'd done a little bit differently. I know that was very recently a thing that was mentioned for Agents of Edgewatch, where there were some things that they regretted the way that they did them, especially considering that people have become even more aware of the climate that kind of surrounds the idea of a story that's just kind of telling a story of police empowerment or this idea of being above the law. And so being able to take a wider view and look at that and make changes. I never treat books as gospel as far as like the story that I'm running. If I need to change any of it, always.
I mean, I agree with you absolutely. And converting, it's a great chance. But like you said, I don't know of any. I've run a ton of pre-written adventures, a ton of Paizo adventures. I can't name one that I did not go significantly off script.
I like J.W. Mangram's quote, or his their post in chat where they're saying they added whole subplots, Legacy of Fire, with converting it to 1E, and at one point they sat the players down and straight up told them, "We're coming up to a major plot hole. Your first reaction to walk away won't be wrong, but we just need to roll with it."
I've actually run the entirety of Legacy of Fire, and Ross has run most of Legacy of Fire as well. I know exactly what they're talking about. I even had the benefit of being a player in Ross's game.
Yes.
And we ran into that problem. And so when I ran it later, I had the foresight to be able to go, I need to change this and make it so walking away isn't an option anymore. Or at the very least, walking away is the worst option.
Yeah.
And that's not even something that stopped. I'm running Age of Ashes, and to get them to do the second book before they understand what is all going on, I had to completely rewrite the MacGuffin and the motivations to get them to care enough to do that adventure. Because if I was dealing with that problem, the characters I play who are goody do goods, let's fix all the problems, would be like, that's a bad problem for somebody else.
Sounds like some other adventurer's problem. Yeah.
So I know No Direction puts out a mind-numbing amount of content on a weekly basis. I don't know how you guys keep up with that.
There's a lot of us.
Yeah. So have you considered doing something like an call IT version of here's a problem that you'll probably run into in Adventure Path. Here's how we would fix this.
Wow, that is an
Ooh, I love
idea. We
this.
have bandied around ideas about doing Adventure Path focused shows,
Mm-hmm.
but specifically having like a call-in tech support for your Adventure Path
I like
plot
it.
holes.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that would be a lot of fun.
It sounds fun.
I would subscribe.
I would not be on that show because I don't have enough experience with the Adventure Paths. I don't know. Param, thoughts?
I mean, I would love it. My perfect crew. This is not a commitment because this is random and we can't guarantee we do the show at all. But of the network, I would want. I definitely would want Luis on that show with me for obvious reasons.
Anytime you can add more Luis.
Oh, I mean, yeah, absolutely.
That's true.
You can get Ron on there too, even if he doesn't have experience with the Adventure Paths. You tell him the problem; he'll know how to develop.
Oh yeah,
it
absolutely.
in a different direction.
Oh man, V is like the crunchiest crunch optimizer that I've ever seen. She would know how to fix the math on it.
All right, so
Oh.
right now you have to stop because I want this show.
I want this show. This
Yeah.
sounds great. If you ever had a guest spot open, I'd be more than happy to hop in.
Mhm.
Oh.
All right, we will talk later.
What have I done? I just announced a new podcast. What have I done?
Oh, this is how we end up where No Direction ended up, with
Yeah.
content releasing literally every day.
The reward for a job well done is more work.
I mean, you all know what we're talking about. How many actual plays are you doing now?
So actual play wise, we're doing Mummy's Mask Tyrant's Grasp, and we are now going to be doing Hell's Rebels, and then Ross is still working on his conversion of the next part of the story for Tales of Dark Moon Veil, which I'm
Yep.
very excited for.
Mm-hmm.
I remember a lot of hints about some sort of Kobold King.
Kobold royalty, yes.
So, and I'm playing a dwarf, so I don't like those little buggers. I was gonna say, Param's got a whole kobold army behind him.
Oh, that's
Change
awesome.
the focus.
Yeah.
Come on, try, stupid camera.
There we go.
you got
Almost.
close.
Almost.
Oh wait. Oh, look at that guy.
Oh, I
Yeah,
think we
that's
just-
awesome.
Oh, there you go.
If I can't
There
change
we
the focus,
are.
I can change the kobold.
He's even got the little salamander head.
I like it. That's awesome.
I'm sure Jessica disapproves because she loves the old kobolds.
All
But
right, now we got to get Param focus back. There we go.
Thankfully, it's set to recognize faces, but it wasn't recognizing the kobold as a
it's
face.
not recognized.
Oh.
It's not set to recognize salamander faces. That's the
Right.
problem.
Oh, this is Cult Miniatures makes this mini. It's a STL file, and like it's like a whole little band of kobolds that are inspired by
nice.
the second
Awesome.
edition look. And I was like, it must do, and I printed like literally 50 of them.
Yeah. But yeah, I think between Ross and I think we played over 12 or 14 adventure paths
Wow.
Yeah, something
because
like
we're on
that.
a one a year for a while.
Yeah.
Actually 2 a year because we were both running them.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I remember. Wow.
little behind.
Yeah. A little bit now. Yeah. Just a wee bit. Yeah. That's okay though. It just means that there's more fun adventures to be had.
absolutely.
So we are about ready to wrap things up. Before we go to shout outs, is there any advice that you would like to throw out there that you might not have covered yet?
After you, Ross.
Well, no, actually, if you
I
could
put you
go
on the spot.
first. Yeah, because I was just still thinking actually.
I'm gonna offer some advice, and this is probably gonna sound a little counterintuitive, but don't be so hard on yourself. In that, don't feel like you have to have every single number and every exact decimal. If you just look at an adventure and go, okay, this says DC 10 perception check, sure, I'll make it a DC 10, and you can just kind of go with the simplified DCs or anything like that. The important thing is to make sure that the game feels balanced, it runs smoothly, and the party feels challenged without being, murdered. But again, don't feel like you have to go through and what I'm doing for my conversion notes, which is literally changing every time it says DC in something to make a comprehensive list. And instead, just be willing to use those amazing tables that they provided.
I think, in my case, the last bit of advice I would like to leave you with is,
That's so meta.
for treasure. Huh? Oh, sorry.
You got a little choppy there.
For treasure at apologies, but for treasure at early levels, it is tricky. But as things progress within the adventure path, it gets a little easier. Most importantly, a lot of adventure paths and other pre-made scenarios will assume fairly common items, just so that way you can ensure one of your adventurers is able to use it. For example, long swords being super common. But you can absolutely feel free to convert those to other weapons, because in second edition, runes can move, which is pretty sweet. So anyway, I just when I found that out, I was like, oh wow, okay, cool. I can make a +2 whatever, and it's fine. +2 striking kukri. Here we go.
Yeah, and Ross stood there just remind me of what I considered probably my best GM advice to anyone, regardless of first or second edition, which is just trust your players.
Yeah.
They want to have fun, they want to have a great story, and if you feel like to do that, you need to tell them that the story's going to go a different direction in book 2, book 3. Don't assume that they'll metagame. Just trust them.
Yeah.
And if you can't trust them, maybe consider whether or not they should be at your table.
Yeah.
Luis in chat is throwing in that he has a piece of advice. Snag the advanced GM screen. It has a table with standard difficulty stats for every level, so you can convert to make a new monster on the fly.
Nice.
Yeah, Param, you know what? We haven't talked about the advanced GM screen yet. We should snag that. According to Luis.
That's really neat.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
That was a
Do we
thing.
have that yet?
I don't know. We'll have to look into that.
Sorry to say that sentence.
I'm gonna look into that. Yeah, geez, I need one of those.
Excellent.
Jeff,
So
I've been looking forward to this since it was announced. When they announced it, I was like, what would make it advanced?
Yeah.
I secretly hoped it would be like the Hackmaster screen with the spiral notebook along the top, so it's like literally flipping pages, and then it expands.
Need more table space.
All right, Rick and Ross, where can we find you both on the internet, and where can we find out more about Find the Path?
Absolutely. So we have a website, which is find-path.com. You can find all of our shows on there, as far as Mummy's Mask, as well as the stuff that we do under our Ventures label. You can find us on Patreon at Find the Path Ventures, which at our $5 tier, you gain access to our Tyrant's Grasp actual play, and at the $10 tier, you gain access to our Share Lore series, which is where we do about 15 to 20 minute long episodes that deep dive into single subjects. I think we just released Targic and the Quest for Sky, which was great. I love dwarves.
Yeah,
I love those videos. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Absolutely, it is a passion of ours. And you can find us on any podcatcher. So if you're a fan of iTunes, of or Podcast Addict is my personal one, you can find our feed on there. Yeah, it is great. It's a very simple layout. I think it's one guy that makes that. It's amazing. You can find us on there by looking for Find the Path Podcast, which is our Mummy's Mass actual play. You can also find our Find the Path Ventures feed, which includes all of our product discussions, as well as our Tales from Dark Moon Vale, which is also available on our YouTube channel. And all of our stuff is steadily being uploaded on our YouTube channel. I don't know how far we are, but it's going. And then you're going to be able to look for our new feed when it drops in January, which is going to be our Find the Path. I don't remember if we've actually named that. I believe it's Find the Path Presents is going to be our feed name, and it'll be Find the Path Presents Hell's Rebels, second edition.
6 weeks, 6 days, 2 hours, 14 minutes, and 13 seconds as of this recording.
You do love a good countdown timer.
I love a good countdown.
So yeah, that's where you can find us. And I guess if we're signing off, then let me just thank both the two of you and all of the No Direction Network for all of the phenomenal content that y'all put out every single
Awesome.
week.
Well, thank you. Thank you for coming on. This was a really informative chat. And I feel like it was different from our usual chats, but super valuable because of it. And also, as someone who didn't get to finish Hell's Rebels, I am really excited to finally hear, up to where I got, see how that's differed, and then see what the rest of the story is.
Nice.
Yeah, got to look out for that Zongor, the Barbarian Thrune guy.
Yep. I'm already getting ready for him.
All right. Param and I will be back with a couple of unboxings right after this. Thanks, guys.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. And we're back.
I don't know what this segment is. I guess it's technically a review segment. We are doing
Read Magic.
a couple of what's what? Oh, it's Read Magic. Nice. Man, that is the name of this segment, isn't it? It's been a while.
Because we've gone to cold opening with it instead of like doing the intro and everything.
Well, in the Read Magic segment, we review a product. Today, I am unboxing the beginner box, the Pathfinder 2 beginner box.
Right. And I will be opening the Bestiary 2 battle. This thing's so heavy.
I think you need to say that again because people that are listening have no idea what you said besides grunt.
Okay, so and I will be unboxing the Bestiary 2 battle cards.
Yeah, it is funny to think of what the meaning of the content in mine is versus yours compared to the weight of the product. Well, I'm going to start opening my shrink wrap right here because I have not touched this box besides to carry it downstairs. These were both provided by Paizo as review copies.
I bought this one.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. Yeah. Well then.
This was before yeah.
That explains why you got a copy and I didn't. All right, so I'm taking the shrink wrap off the beginner box. We could have dedicated a whole episode to the beginner box, but what my expectations are right now is that it's a beginner box. We've seen several of them at this point. Paizo does these well, but since the first one, they've found a really solid format for what should be in a beginner box. There's a couple of specific things I'm looking forward to in here, but I'm expecting it to be a regular level of satisfaction with this product.
Right, which should be a high level of satisfaction. They really do some of the best beginner boxes in the industry.
Absolutely. So we got the new cover. It's got a green dragon this time, and they managed to put all 4 of the iconics that are in the box. Normally, it's only a couple of them that are fighting the dragon. So the fact that all 4 of them are in here means that it's a better display of like what to expect inside. And if you are brand new to the game, then it's a good indicator of what to expect, because a lot of the outside the box presentation is very board game like. So first thing on top, we've got a baggie of faces, including 1 green one, and I believe 1 large one. As a veteran Pathfinder player, I don't need these.
Right, but it's good to have them.
It makes sense to have them in there. They'll just get added to my pile. Here is the set of dice. Now, the color coding is something that I really appreciated when we were talking to Jason Bullman and to Paizo about this at Gen Con when we were doing some of the early previews of this. The fact that they're color coded means that you don't just have to tell them, grab the D20, you can tell them to grab the red die. I remember specifically, I was introducing someone to role-playing games at Chimera Cards one time, and I said, make a roll, and he picked up a D12, and I was like, that's a D12. And so he put it down and then picked up a different D12, thinking that I was correcting the die of choice, thinking that it was like, this roll needs a D12. And so we had to stop the conversation to start over. It's like,
no.
What I'm saying is you have a D12 when you should have a D20. So being able to say, grab the red one instead of the blue one, that would have made that conversation a lot easier. I'm not crazy about the specific shades. It's not the prettiest set of dice. It's super functional. And so I don't fault them for going with a super functional choice there. But it feels like in the last couple of years, dice design has become just an artistic venue of its own. And so to see what's out there, even to see just compared to my regular dice, to see a very basic set of dice, it's like, it's not exciting. But you know what? The next set of dice that the players get when they get into the hobby fully can be a lot more interesting.
Which will be about 10 minutes afterwards. It's the average of what I'm seeing. Because honestly, players buying their first set of dice to roleplay, it's like, it's such a humongous, exciting moment for them. And they always brag about it. And they were like, oh, look, I got my own dice. I think it's important rite of passage.
This is interesting. We've got a Sirenscape advertisement in the box.
Mm-hmm.
So, we've got, we're friends with Sirenscape. They sponsor Adventurous. Sirenscape is the the revolutionary app bringing immersive sound and music to your Pathfinder game. So odds are, if you were a fan of No Direction, you know what Sirenscape is. It's an app that lets you play dynamically generated music for your game. It's the soundtracks for Adventurous. It's soundtracks for a lot of actual play podcasts, in fact. And here you can download the Fantasy Player with 10 sound sets for free if you follow the link. Then I'm not going to show you because, I've got a full subscription to Sirenscape, so I don't actually need that. I might, figure out something to do with it, give it away to somebody. But I don't want somebody downloading it off of my card because they've watched this video. Okay, next thing is a read this first. Nice piece of glossy plastic. What is Pathfinder? If you are on your own, it tells you how to play a solo. If you have a group, it tells you what each item in this box is. And then there's a nice display of all the items you want. I'm already more impressed with this than I expected it to be. It is a really nice visual layout, very simple. Explains what's in this box and why. And its placement in the box is important. Starfinder have that?
Can you look at the dice? Because in early promotional photos, they were mismatched in colors. Do they match?
Let's see. Red, blue, orange, purple, green, yellow. Yes, they match.
Fantastic. Because it's a fantastic tool to have, but it doesn't help if it's wrong.
All right, next up, we've got these player reference cards. We've got 5 of them. Nope, 6 of them. Which is interesting. There's only 4 pre-generated characters in the box, but I guess it makes sense that to have one for the GM and have an extra one if you have extra players.
Well, you'll be able to make your own character in that box too.
What's that? Oh yeah, there are some blank character sheets in here. I haven't got them yet. These are pretty text heavy. There's the circles to keep track of how many actions you've got and a reaction, but otherwise, as a summary for the game, it's not super visually interesting, but let me see, just quickly looking it over. It covers critical successes, failures, critical failures, rolling, DCs. I would have liked that to have been a little more streamlined. Either separate that information across 2 different cards so that you can be a little more visual, or I don't know, just find some way to summarize a little bit more interesting, because that is a lot of text, especially when you get to the conditions. I guess these are all the conditions that happen in the beginner box.
Are those on the back of the cards?
Yeah, front of the card.
That you're going to have tokens on?
That's a good point. Yeah, but you also do have a couple of extra ones.
Okay.
Hopefully that is not the only place where the conditions are summarized, because like you said, you're supposed to have tokens on the top, so the back will be useless. All right, 4 example character sheets. We've got Valoros the Fighter, Ezrin the Wizard, Kira the Cleric, Mauricio the Rogue. It's got the usual format you're familiar with from first edition, where it's play a fighter if you want to, and then it gives some stats. Gives you Valoros's biography, which is good because that is just the extra step that'll really get you into Pathfinder. Like it'll get you into the lore, it'll get you into the idea of a character is more than just its set of stats. And then the character sheet and a explainer of what the character sheet is. So I remember in first edition, it was all in the middle and the explainers were on the sidebars. This one, the character sheet is on one side, explainers are on the other. I don't know if I prefer one to the other. It's got the symbols summarized here, proficiencies. That's good, because that is something that I found lacking in the character sheet.
I do say that I like this presentation better, because as much as I would hate seeing it done to something I want to keep pristine, that one character sheet, you had to keep it spread out, and it takes a lot of table space. And with this one, you can fold the explainer around the back.
That's a good point. So, all right, I'm sold. This is the better way to go. All right, beginner's box, Hero's Handbook. I like that it's included beginner's box in the title. That way, if you start getting a massive collection, you will not forget which one came with the beginner box. It is about what you're expecting. It's a very colorful version of what we got from the core rulebook, but very specific to the 4 classes that are in here. I like the layout. It's really clean, really nice, really eye-catching. There is like a green border and a slight beige to the white background. Yeah, this is a very readable layout.
Does it have a lot of visual like tokens and tie-ins to the dice and stuff?
Oh, to the dice. Good question. So there's a lot of annotations. So like in ability boost, it says to each of those, and then there's a D in a yellow circle telling you to look somewhere else, which I, again, just opened this box, so I haven't checked to see exactly where they go. Visual references of the dice. I am surprised that I have not seen any yet. Let me get to the equipment chapter.
Yeah, because like they mentioned it and they showed it on the character sheet, which I thought was super cool. Like, you know, the dice you would roll for this is like right there on the character sheet next to the appropriate thing. It would be cool if they kept that going throughout the thing, throughout the entire book.
Here's the chart for the equipment, and it just says 1d6. It just numerically spells them out.
So it is worth pointing out that this isn't the big difference between this and first edition's beginner box. Is first edition's beginner box was like a pared down, simplified version of Pathfinder. It was actually like skills got combined, it used slightly different rules for different things. And this was also true for Starfinder, and I was actually disappointed to hear that with Starfinder, because Starfinder was already a much simpler game to run. But this is Pathfinder. This is Pathfinder 2, Pathfinder 2. This is not a simplified version. It's definitely a subset of the options. Like, not all of the character options that you could use to create characters are going to be available in that book, compared to what you'd have out of the core rulebook. But it is indeed the same system. You're not going to have to say, oh, no, I know we taught you to do it this way in the beginner box, but actually now we have to do it this completely other way.
All right, it comes with 6 blank character sheets. These are double-sided. So the first side is a lot like what you saw with the pre-generated characters. This one has a little bit beefier info for when you're making your own character. And it still has the annotations, so you can just go back to the pre-generated characters to see what this stuff is referring to. So it's nice. They're pretty. They're nice, simple layout, which I know we talked about this last episode, was one of the complaints against the original character sheet for 2nd edition.
Right. There's a reason so many people downloaded my character sheet.
Oh, so this is interesting. Here is the Game Mastery Guide, the Beginner Box Game Mastery Guide, or Game Master's Guide.
Okay.
And I was expecting this to be about running the game and then having the canned adventure, but there's actually about a whole chapter. Okay, well, the whole chapter is about 10 pages about building your own adventure and building your own campaign.
That's cool. I mean, that's the thing. That's the thing about a role-playing game that makes it different from a choose-your-own-adventure or a prepackaged Descent-style board game. It's the idea that you make this. This is you. This is your stories. And if you can't make your own stories in the beginner box, it's not really beginning you on the game at all.
So the first chapter is the Menace under Otari. And it's interesting the way it's laid out. You've got first level and second level, which I think will be both the dungeon level and the level of the character. Because when I was flipping through the player's guide, one of them, or sorry, the hero's handbook, one of the things was saying, what do you do now that you've reached 3rd level and beyond? Yeah, building adventures. And of course, so this is the Menace under Otari. And the last chapter is about 10 pages on Otari, the city. It might be a village. Anyway, the population that is being... It's really being spotlighted by this and several other products. Let me just go up to my list here. Otari features into the beginner box. It features into Troubles in Otari, which is a standalone adventure. And then it is also the setting of Abomination Vaults, which is the adventure path that's coming out December or January. It's imminent. So if you get the beginner box, there's already jumping off points of not just what's the next level of character that you're going to be playing, but also specific follow-ups to the region that you're already familiar with, which absolutely brilliant, I think.
Also, Otari is on the Isle of Absalom, so Isle of Krotos, where Absalom is, and the Agents of Edgewatch and Extinction Curse both take place near there, so you've got all sorts of options where to branch off. And if you don't want to handle Abomination Vaults, you could go join the circus.
All right, and we've got double-sided flip map, one for each level of the dungeon, and then we got some pawns, which
now there should be something
the first
special
beginner
about
box
this pawn
made
set.
the beginner box worth it, even if you weren't a beginner.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, the drow sneak. These are anyway. We've got a lot of pawns by now, but it's always appreciated. Plus, there's the whole here's the PC's sheet. So you've got three versions, or sorry, you've got three ancestries of two genders each. So a human female, human male, both of the cleric. Then you've got the same thing for dwarves and elves, and you've got that going down for the rest of the characters. Plus, you've got the iconics and an ogre warrior for some reason. I guess just because they still had space. And this is good looking art, and it's not automatically art I recognize. Like this cleric elf male has like a butterfly domino mask. I don't know how well you can see that there. Get really close. It's an interesting design. They're all really cool designs. I like the dwarf rogues because that's not a common connection of ancestry and class. And then the last item is also an ad. It is an ad for Pathfinder Society. Sorry, Pathfinder Society on one side, the rule books on the other side.
Right. So it seems to be well put together. Back to the tokens, the pawns. I think there are actual tokens for the action points and stuff in there.
Yeah, here they are. So we've got the action tokens, the reaction tokens, and you are to take these out, put them on your character sheet either when you've used the action or you put them on at the beginning and you just knock them off every time you've used them.
Are they the same on the front and the back?
They better be.
Well, no, if they were different, then you could flip them over.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, save on the front and back. I think the beginner box is really well done. I think Paizo is really smart with how they put these together. And the fact that they've stuck some ads in there for just the larger game and the larger hobby. And that otherwise it really does present, like here, if you look on the back of the box, you've got these charts that are often found on board games telling you the number of players to expect, the age range, and the number of time it takes to use the contents of the box, which it says is 60 minutes. I guess to run the canned adventure, but that is
not even the canned adventure can be run that fast.
Yeah, it's true. You got to learn the game in 60 minutes before you can even play it. I think that this is the best value of the beginner boxes they've released yet.
I definitely think it. Yeah, I would not hesitate to get that beginner box tip for any. I've been looking through digital copies. So I don't have the physical one, but I do have the download.
Which is also worth pointing out that there is a PDF version. So if you are going to be playing online, you can get the PDF version, share those PDFs. Actually, I'm saying PDFs, but I don't know if all the digital content is PDF. Some of it might be JPEGs now.
Yeah, some of it is JPEGs.
Yeah, I got to get used to the fact that the digital content is not automatically PDFs anymore. Well, anyway, so yeah, if you don't expect to sit down at a table with a bunch of beginners yet, you could get the PDF, the digital version, and play on an online game.
So, speaking of other things that I probably wouldn't get in digital format, except for the fact that just to keep it all in the collection, is the big Bestiary 2 battle cards. I really loved Bestiary 1 battle cards. They were wonderful, and I wish I could use them. I really do. This is the worst time to get so many cool, awesome physical accessories. So these do not help me in my online games. I guess the digital versions, well, on Roll20, I have the Pathfinder set, which is awesome and integrated, and I'm sure that that's similar to all other ones that have official partnerships with Paizo and official sets and stuff. But super useful having these, and let's see how the second one stands up to the first one. I'm expecting it to be absolutely identical.
Yeah, so that's another reason this isn't getting its own episode, because
like, no.
You see the cards, right?
Right, so it's the same layout, which this does disappoint me that the box is the shape it is, because the cards are, let me see here. Cards are laying flat like this, which is going to make it hard for me to flip through them to find the ones I want. And I really would have loved it if I could set the cards in either like this, or maybe that's not realistic. Something like this would be a settle, so that I could at least put a file system in here to get like A, B. Well, actually, A would be like the first third of it because angels and all that jazz. But where they store flat like this, I'm gonna have to come up with another. Especially now that there's so many of them, I'm gonna have to come up with another way to organize and keep these things.
Yeah, it's true. We're just at a second box, and it already feels like there's a lot of cards to deal with.
I know, right? All right, so getting the plastic off this set.
Is your intention to mix them in so that it's alphabetical across all the bestiaries, or keep it separated by book?
Ooh, I have to buy.
What was that?
I'm gonna have to buy 2.
All right, just so you could have them ordered in both ways.
Yeah.
All right.
I won't have to open one of them though, so I can just shelf copy and the NPC decks. Old rotary telephone index thing, just dial it.
I was picturing like a drawer at a library.
Oh, card catalog. It's really easy to get old card catalogs right now.
I guess it would be. Do you think they would fit?
No. I used to. I was going to be a librarian once upon a time. I even went to school for it, and part of that was during the age that we were taking old card catalogs and making digital card catalogs. So that's about the time that I was taking those classes. So I became intimately familiar with those stupid dang cards. But okay, so let's see. I got the plastic off. I'm the A set, as you can see on one side. Putting them in. You have my face is in focus, so I'm going to put them where my face was. You've got the art on one side, and on the flip side, the stats. The stats. I'm glad they went with big cards, because with Bestiary 1, you ran into a lot of creatures that would only took like half the card, because the big card art and not all the rules, so you'll end up stuff like crab, giant. Not many rules required. More than was required for bear in Bestiary 1, because it has vulnerable to prone. It actually has a special rule.
Wow.
But Pathfinder 2, the stat blocks are tinier. I mean, sometimes you get big stat blocks, but for most of the time, the stat blocks are going to be tinier compared to PF1. And then, but by making them on these big cards, you can actually still read them fairly easily. With it's slight, I would say, identical or slightly larger than the actual book print, as opposed to, I've seen a lot of resource cards like this, especially ones that tried to fit them then into standard playing card size cards. That text gets tiny. And then I'm blessed that with my glasses I could easily read that. I know that a lot of players have complained to me that my spell cards are printed too small, which is why I added the function on those to make the text bigger if you wanted to. And so I'm aware that that is not a universal statement.
Aaron Paisley is asking if they're 5x7, and Van Dragon Elvish is suggesting they're 4x6. You're looking for a ruler?
Ooh, I grab a ruler.
For people listening at home, Param has fallen down and is rolling down a hill that was in his game room for some reason. We had no idea it was there.
All right, I'm going to have to take an immediate break to map up some from pops that have spilled onto.
Oh no!
A rule book.
Well, go deal with that now. I can entertain the audience while.
But it is definitely 4 by not quite 6.
Oh, weird. Yeah, you know what? Dragon Elvish in chat just added an ish.
Yeah, it's like 5 7/8.
Huh.
Yeah.
What is that in metric? Does it make more sense that way?
Let me look at metric. It is 15 millimeters by No, not 15 millimeters. 15 centimeters by, but it doesn't
Right, yeah,
match up
15
real well on the
millimeters is
others.
tiny.
By 10.2 centimeters.
All right.
That doesn't quite match up on either direction.
All right. Do you have to go clean that up?
Yeah, I really do.
You do that. All right. Numbat18 says, goodness, I had to walk away for a minute and come back to chaos. So what happened was that Param was leaning back, grabbed a ruler, which is apparently the most convenient ruler in his game room, which I guess was covered in soda cans that by moving the ruler spilt everywhere. Hopefully not damaging anything, because I know there is so much cool stuff in that game room that it would hurt me to find out that it got damaged.
Oh, thankfully, it doesn't look like anything of value is damaged.
I can hear you cleaning.
Yeah, sorry.
It's all right. Deal with your mess. We've got. It's
I
almost
want
11.
I
We
want
don't
to
have all that
defend
much.
that my game room is not covered in soda cans. It has one soda can over there, and it was the one I was using before the podcast.
Oh man, did you see the Bob's Burgers where Bob is teaching Tina how to drive, and they're in a parking lot, and there's one car in the whole thing, and she's very slowly grazing towards it.
Uh-huh.
So that's what it sounds like. If you managed to knock over the one soda can in the entire game.
So the ruler was sitting on the other side of the soda can. I tried to reach over it to grab the ruler without leaving the leash I have of headphone. And yeah, that didn't work out so great for me. But again, like the as far as the cards, they're awesome, but identical really to the Bestiary 1 cards. They didn't make any substantive changes to the format or the contents. It's all the cool stats in Bestiary 2, and including the variants. So, like, if there's multiple versions of a monster listed, each of the versions has art and card, which is useful.
How quickly can you find the Froggy Myth right now?
Considering most of them are in shrink wrap.
All right, never mind. Not worth it.
But you keep talking, and I will do it while we talk.
Do you want to do it while we're doing the shoutouts?
Yeah, let's do it while we're doing the shoutouts.
All right, we'll be right back with the shoutouts right after this.
Wrap-ups and shoutouts. Wrap-ups and shoutouts. Wrap-ups. Wrap-ups and shoutouts.
And we're back.
Thank you for joining us for episode 237 of No Direction, the No Direction Network's Pathfinder news, reviews, and interviews podcast. Thank you to our guests, Rick Sandage and Ross Scoggin of Find the Path Ventures. You can find them at find-path.com. I am really excited about their Hell's Rebels Adventure Path, and I've got to find a way to fit another podcast into my regular listening. Actually, since we're talking about that, my podcast shout out for this episode. Oh, I guess I should mention before we go, we want to shout out to a couple of things that have our attention as fans of the Pathfinder role-playing game and just fans of all things geek, really. And, if we like it, maybe you'll like it too. So I have been making a habit of shouting out to a podcast in my podcatcher. And today I finally gotten to Reply All. This is a podcast that you might be thinking I've already shouted out to. That's because it's come up organically in conversations often. Reply All is a research journalism podcast where every episode is about a single topic, and it's usually tech related. It's usually really insightful and really interesting. The two hosts put a lot of their personality into the show, which really adds to the banter segments setting up the episodes before the investigative reports. And I've just really found it fascinating. I'm like 100 episodes into their backlog. It quickly became one of my favorite podcasts. For a while, I was listening to it anytime I was caught up, which, back when I had more of a commute, so I was listening to more podcasts. And then every now and then I would be like, okay, great, I've got a new episode of something I'm regularly listening to. I just want to listen to a Reply All right now. It's that much fun. They are really interesting people, really intelligent, really forward-thinking. And I'm super glad to have discovered this podcast and that it's on my list.
Awesome. That sounds like one I need to add to my check it out list.
Oh,
Actually,
yeah,
this whole
absolutely.
segment has basically made my podcast list grow to double its size. So please keep doing it.
So more than most podcasts that I've recommended, I recommend Reply All, especially for you, Param. This is right up your alley.
I have Froggy.
Oh, look how good that card looks too.
I know, right? And I love this because okay, so if you want a homemade version of this, and you are like us and have a billion pawn bases, take 2 of your small pawn bases, or maybe 2 of your large ones, actually, because these cards are so big. Take 2 of your large pawn bases that you have spare and a billion of. Glue them together, flat side to flat side. Put one on the top of your screen, and then put this in the slot that created on the top of it.
Oh, on top of the GM screen. Okay,
Yeah.
I thought we were making a miniature for the board.
No.
And so I thought you were saying make them like feet, and you can have.
Oh no, that would be fantastic. Stone. No. So then you can just go whoop, right on top of your GM screen, and they can see the monster they're fighting, and you can just glance on you're just glancing up to see it.
Man, that is good.
Yeah.
That is exactly how
an
you should
easier
use
way
those
to do this another easy way to do this would be like some packing tape that you fold over on top of itself, and then tape the bottom of it to the screen, and then you got a slot at the top of your screen that you can slide it into because it's paper. There's all sorts of ways. If you can think of a way to slot a card into the top of your GM screen, then you can do this.
Speaking of slotting in, this episode has a sponsor. We are brought to you by Beetle and Grimm's Complete Character Chronicles. And Param, we can either do a segment here that you can slot in earlier into the episode, or we can do a recording after we're done with the Private Sanctum after this episode. What do you think?
Let's do the segment here.
Okay, great. So, basically, we just get to talk for about a minute about how great Beetle and Grimm's Complete Character Chronicles is. So before
this is a sponsored spot.
This is a sponsored spot. So Beetle and Grimm's Complete Character Chronicles. We just had a couple of members of Beetle's and Grimm's team. In fact, we had Beetle and Grimm on the podcast last episode talking about their Kickstarter. And now that it's gone live, they approached us about doing a sponsored segment. And we have one rule about our sponsored segments. We have to fully love the product. And I am super excited about the Beetle and Grimm's Character Chronicles. Param, you know that I have a lot of memory issues. And a lot of the problems that I have with second edition is just, where is this information? How do I find it? I'm not as familiar with these books right now. And I have to remember absolutely every single rule. So the idea that I can have a character with all the rules that I need for it there from the core rulebook and the Advanced Player's Guide is literally going to make playing second edition easier for me. It's going to change the game for me in a way that I don't think, like it'll be a game changer like the condition cards in first edition were. This is going to absolutely make playing second edition much easier for me, and I can finally focus on playing the character, which is my favorite part of playing a role-playing game. And something that they've just added is a digital level. So previously they were really playing up the fact that these are really beautiful, fancy books that you can get with their vegan leather covers. They're sturdy. They have the 2 bookmarks, 2 silk bookmarks. And they really wanted to play up the fact that they are a producer of fine goods, fine role-playing goods. But a lot of people were also saying, yeah, but this also sounds like a really good character sheet, and I want the character sheet. Maybe I'll get one of the books, but I also just want a lot of access to the character sheets. So they've added for $25 US or more, you can get an electronic character chronicle. You can choose one of the 4 that's been released right now, or when one of the other classes gets unlocked. And at this point, all 16 of the classes, or at least all 12 from the core rulebook, have been plotted out and are planned to be made. It's just a matter of what gets unlocked during the Kickstarter are the ones that you get access to if you pledge at this level. So for $25, you get one of the, at this point, 4 character chronicles as a digital copy, so you can print as many of them as you need. You can even get your fancy copy at any of the pages that you are worried about writing on. You can just print out a digital copy, put it in there as a bookmark / book saver.
The hit point sheet. Well, no, they have that cool slate thing that to keep track of that. That's the better option. But
I'm just scrolling down to see if they've added a digital copy as an add-on, or if you have to back at the digital level.
Don't know.
Yeah, it seems like you have to back at the digital level, and then you can add on the other items.
Oh, let's see what the FAQ says. Because I would hope. Will there be PDFs?
Your mic's not really near your. We're having trouble hearing you.
It says, will the PDFs be available? We have now included electronic versions of the class in the Chronicle books and added additional tiers and add-ons to the campaign. So it doesn't answer the question. I hope. Oh boy. Oh yes, digital's great. I would definitely want digitals of all of them.
The thing is, if you get the digital one, you can also get as an add-on those dice.
Yes, I
I
know.
love those dice sets. So you know what? If the beginner box is your first dice set,
Mhm.
and you like one of those 4 characters, the 4 classes that are in the beginner box are also the 4 characters that are unlocked right now, and they each have a dice set that is specific to those classes, in that it has extra dice of the dice those classes need.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
the cleric has extra d8s for the healing. The rogue has extra d6s for sneak attack. The wizard has extra d4s for magic missile. And I believe the fighter has extra d10s just for beefy attacks. Oh, it looks
And
like it also has extra d20s.
Yeah, and the tin, the art and the tin they come with, like, oh man, like one of the things I'm definitely getting with this, like regardless of which character sheets I end up getting, as I'm going to make sure I get one of each of those dice sets.
Oh, Raising Rune Lords in chat says they bought all 4 digital books today.
Oh wow.
So I have backed at the $130 level. I believe it's the Heroes tier. It's the one that gets me the collector's edition. It gets me a Hero Forge miniature, and it gets me the set of dice. And I went with the Rogue. But I think I'm also going to get all 4 digital copies as soon as I figure out how. And I'm not going to do it live because we did that last episode, and I nearly put an extra $300 into this Kickstarter.
You get all the books ever made.
Also, if you've been following us on social media, we have been running a contest where you can guess what mystery class number 2 is. The reason we said mystery class number 2 is that we assumed mystery class number 1 would be unlocked before the end of the contest. And so we've got 2 extra books here. One of them is purple, one of them is green. We've been told that this does not actually necessarily represent the classes that will be unlocked. So ignore what those mystery class mock-up covers look like. But if you have a guess about what you think mystery class number 2 will be, basically, what is the 6th most important class to have a complete character chronicle? You can use the hashtag complete character chronicle, post to social media with your guess, post a link to the Kickstarter, and you will be entered in a contest to win a Beetle and Grimm's t-shirt. We've got 5 of them to give away, so we are going to run a lottery based on the number of times people share guesses to different social media platforms. So if you would like to know more, you can check out Beetle and Grimm's Character Chronicles on Kickstarter today.
And they've got lots of pictures on the side too.
Right,
you know what I want to shout out to that isn't a sponsor, Dad?
Go for it.
Frontier Wargaming has a ridiculously cool paint box that is this giant wooden paint box that the side comes down on, and like you don't open it from the top. You set it down standing upright, and one of the sides tilts down and becomes a work surface. And it's basically like a portable hobby gaming paint station that goes with you wherever you go. And originally they pitched this as, hey, you can travel with your paint station and store 6 miniatures in here that you're working on paint handles, and and it holds 94 paints and like rooms for everything. And it has a mountable light that goes on the top of it that just beams down this like humongously sun bright LED onto what you're working on the paint. And if you can, one of the best upgrades that you can do to any of your painting gear, if you are painting at all, is a very bright light. A very white, bright light. As close as you can get to true light and as bright as possible. Because the biggest problem you're actually probably having with painting small details on miniatures isn't so much your trembling hands, which is a problem for a lot of people. But a lot of people, it is not being able to see the detail and where the point of the brush is as you're working. And the brighter the light, the easier that is to do. When I got this, started using my big old studio light to work on, which is massively overkill, massively over. I could have done this for $14 in a light bulb at IKEA, but getting humongously bright light on my subject, my painting quality improved instantly.
Wow.
And this hobby case comes with, you can, as an add-on, you can get this LED that just like clips to the top of it and like shines down on the work surface. And but it is about, if you do not have a dedicated hobby space, is where we found this works, because I got it from a younger sibling. I have this paint studio here. They don't have a paint studio. They're more than willing and can use mine anytime they want, but they don't have one. So they just go into the living room, set up a little tray table, put the case on it, and boom, painting studio right there. Just one plug and everything lights up and good to go. And I have become jealous of it. I bought it for them. And since then, one of my players in my game group has also gotten one, and it's just like it's brilliant, it's wonderful. And if you do not have a dedicated hobby space, now you will.
So I'm on their website now, frontiergaming.com, and I believe you're talking about the Paint Case 2.0.
Yes, let me pull it up too. You talk while I get that done.
Sure. So looking it over, the base case is £92. The LED add-on is another £16. We're talking about British currency. So in Canadian currency, that's about $187. In US currency, it's about $142 to get the whole thing. You could also get LED light add-on cable extender and custom engraving.
You want the cable extender?
You want the cable extender? Well, that'll cost you an extra £8.
Yeah, you might want to get a cable extender on Amazon. But you do want that cord is unfortunately not long enough.
Ooh, and you also need a plug converter because this uses European sockets, I guess.
Right. You can. Yeah, that is also a true statement.
So this is not an impulse buy. Make sure you're doing the research to make sure you're getting all of the items you need so that you get the most out of this. But looking at it, it's very pretty. And in the various different pictures, one of them's just got the paint stacked in there. One of them's got a combination of paint and miniatures. I like this drawer with the miniature holders. I believe they're magnetic. And you put the miniature on top. And so you've got just the miniatures you're working on all there on display, or not really display, but like easy access for you.
If you haven't started using some sort of paint handle to paint with, you're missing out.
I have not.
And it is so like, okay, so this here, if you don't like, if you're not buying this case, but so this thing here is a candle holder from Hobby Lobby that I bought 12 for $2.
People can't see you right now, pal.
Oh, wonderful! I am bad. So this right here that I'm using here, this is a can from the hobby store. It is 12 for $2. It is candle holders that I have filled with sand and put a wooden plug on one end, but that's optional. I've used them without the sand long before I thought, hey, it would be better if it had sand in it and was harder to tip over. But just holding onto this and painting your mini is amazingly good because you're not worried about what you're touching. You're not, smudging your paint, getting it all over your fingers. You're able to like manipulate the miniature to be at the angle you need to be instead of trying to manipulate the brush to be at the mini, which is what you should be doing. Like, you want to paint the inside the shield. Don't try to do this. Do this. And this being changed where I held it upside down because I forgot for a minute we're a podcast.
All right, I have a couple of shout outs to stuff that's up on the network. One of them, I wrote today's Phantasmal Killer. So I filled in for Crystal. Phantasmal Killer is usually about making subsystems that add specific feels and tones to your games and to different encounters. I offered to write a backup one for Crystal just in case she ever needed it. And so this has been sitting unpublished for like a month. And I'm actually very excited that it finally did get published. It is Kindergarten Heroes, and it is just talking about how you apply kindergarten teacher techniques to having your players help you as the GM set up for your game, and you reward them with in-game hero points. Hero points is a great currency that can be used for this kind of reward. And it can be as simple as just helping set up the physical space, or if anyone is going out of their way to make sure that everyone is able to attend. So, for example, the person that is handling the scheduling, the person that is driving people to physical spaces, the person that is setting up online games if you're playing in an online game. Just various different techniques you can use that it's very common in kindergarten. It's very basic. It's very easy to implement, and it will change your game. And it was just take the pressure off the GM, who, on top of running the game, become the de facto leader of a lot of groups and therefore also have a lot of the less fun responsibilities. So this spreads the less fun responsibilities around. And if you need help convincing your players to do it, you give their characters a hero point.
Look, that's good because one of the first versions of the draft of the hero points included a lot of this in it. Of like, the person that brings snacks could get a hero point and stuff. Of course, online gaming, that would be harder to do. I'd have to mail snacks to everybody every Thursday. Here's your requisite 3 Mountain Dews, the bag of Fritos. Uh-oh, what?
I lost you for a second there, and now the stream is okay. No, it looks like we're good.
Okay, good. You had me worried.
You had me worried.
Why you do that?
Anyway.
So now that if we're shouting out things we wrote, I helped write part of an adventure.
Yes, this was my next shout out if it wasn't yours.
Okay. So me and Crystal Fraser worked on an adventure for Mutants and Masterminds because I love that system, and I also love X-Men. So this was the perfect adventure to write, and it is called Bite Club. It is a hero. It is a hero high adventure where you either are students at the school or teachers at the school. You have a connection to Hero High, and where some strange shenanigans are going on with disappearances and vampires showing up that really like to shop at Hot Topic. It was amazingly fun to write. It was also great working with Crystal, getting to work in and mess with some of the canon characters and that I had already been a fan of, and and it's my first published adventure that I worked on. So, yay!
Congratulations!
Go check it out. It was awesome. It was awesome to get to do this work, and it was so much more work than I thought it was. I knew it was going to be more work than I thought it was, but it was even more than that.
So that would be Mutants and Masterminds, Astonishing Adventures, Bite Club. Mm-hmm. Right now, the PDF is $4.99 at Drive-Thru RPG. Oh, and it is, of course, from Greed Ronin Publishing.
Yeah.
Chat is congratulating you, Param.
Oh, thank you.
Well, we are about to wrap things up, but remember that just because the show's done doesn't mean that we're done. Param, where can people find out more about us, and where can they join us for the Patrons Private Sanctum After Party?
Because if you're only listening to the podcast, you're missing about half, I guess even less. You're only listening to about less than half of the amazing content that No Direction provides, and other podcasts for Starfinder, actual plays in Pathfinder, general geekery, and other game systems. You can find that at NoDirectionPodcast.com. While you're there, you'll also see the Discord link over on the right, the big purple Discord button. Go ahead and click on that, and you'll be able to join the chillest community for Pathfinder out there on the internet. Just hang out with us. All the staff pretty much hang out on there. All the fans do, and we chat there all day, almost every day. It's a great place to reach out to the community and to reach out to us, and especially a great place for patrons to hang out, because below the Discord button, you're going to see the Patreon button. And if you click on that, you get the choice to become one of our patrons. We appreciate every single thing our patrons have done for us and allow us to do. It's only through their support that we've been able to expand the network and continue to do this content that we love bringing to you all every single day. And patrons get a special little reward after every one of our No Directions, where you can go hang out on a special channel on our Discord to participate in our Private Sanctum, which is the after show that we do where we talk about what our patrons ask us to talk about. Anything you want us to chat about, that's what we'll chat about for a while in there. And those episodes get released onto the Patreon feed after the fact. And it's become one of my favorite things to do during the week, is to go hang out in there and talk about what our fans want us to chat about.
Until next time, I'm Ryan Costello.
And I'm Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Param.
And if you want to find the path, you need no direction.